Welcome to the Lui Diaz Podcast. Oh, I just blew myself out. Hi, Morgan Bryant is back.
I am back.
It's been a year.
It's great to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for coming back. And yes, we were just talking about the, I make people sit down and not say anything. I'm just like, sit down, we're going to press record and not talk at all before we turn the mics on.
Yeah, otherwise we get all the good juice out before we turn the mics on.
Yeah, it can happen. And then you made that Instagram analogy that I'm not really that aware of, to be honest, but I think I've heard it before.
If there's no photo, it didn't happen.
Yeah. If there's no recording, we didn't talk, basically. Or the skateboarding version is skate or die. And it's just like, for me, it's now just pod or die. Just carry the mics around with you everywhere you go and hope you capture a good conversation, which I'm sure we will today.
I'm sure we will.
And I've got a bratwurst here because I'm hungry. So the audience may hear me chewing on food.
They may hear a little bit of sippy on coffee as well,
yeah.
Which is very on brand for me.
Yes, but we should probably tell everyone where we are with all these culinary delights. And we're at the Queen Victoria Market.
Yeah, my favourite spot on a Sunday.
Yeah, you're a regular here.
I am.
Why do you come here so much?
Because
you live in St Kilda, isn't there closer markets?
Well, there is. There is Paran Market, which is closer, but Victoria Market is half the price.
Half? Are you kidding?
Yeah,
I'm gonna
a
say
quarter.
A third.
I honestly haven't been to the Paran Market for a good couple of years at least, but
$15 for a coffee there.
Yeah, exactly. And I just paid $2 a kilo for bananas. So tell me where in Melbourne you can get bananas for $2 a kilo. It sure ain't at Coles and Woolies, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, they're like $5.99 a kilo at Coles and Woolies.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, at the Paran Market, they'd be like $99 a kilo.
Yeah, so basically I come here for the cheap prices. Also, I love the vibe as well. It's not everyone's vibe. You do have to sometimes breathe quite deeply to get through the crowds, but
yeah, okay.
I do love the environment.
Yeah.
It's my little ritual.
I agree about the vibe. I think one of the things that attracts me to the Queen Vic Market is the eclectic crowd and the diversity of food and just general food culture.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had some people stop me actually as I was setting up and they were like, oh, hey, you're doing a podcast. I'm like, yeah, hey, what are you guys doing? And they're like, we're cooking some, and I forgot the name of it, some Lebanese traditional dish, and we just got these baby eggplants. And I was like, I didn't even know baby eggplants existed.
That's the other thing, is the diversity of produce that's available here is really, really good. And the quality of the produce as well. Like, quality in big supermarkets absolutely sucks. Yeah. And the quality here is so much better. Yeah. So, yeah, as well as prices, it's way... Also, when you go to a supermarket, you're dealing with a machine. You're never talking to a person. And I just always have such nice chats with the stall holders here. It's so nice to actually have human interaction in today's world. So that's another reason I love shopping at markets.
Amen to human interaction.
Yeah.
Now's probably a good time to say that this podcast is proudly sponsored by the Queen Victoria Market. If you're listening.
Drop your email, Louis.
But yeah. Hey, listen, I wanted to have you back on because our first chat was so good and there's so much that's happened in your life since our first chat. To remind the audience, our first conversation was just before you went to move.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
just going.
Vacation. Yeah. It was like a move.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now you're back.
I am.
And people are like, what the hell?
Why? How long is she back for? Not going to lie, it's our first week of cold weather in Melbourne and everyone's asking how long I'm staying for.
It's not even that cold, honestly. It's not.
Say that to a girl who's been living in the Caribbean for years. It's cold.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so last time we chatted, I'd been back, I'd lived in Mexico for a couple of years and then had been coming and going. I had my business 100% online, so I was doing the digital nomad thing. And basically, as soon as I'd got back to Australia after my 2.5 years in Mexico, I was like, no, Mexico is where I want to be. And so I went to Nepal with my dad for a couple of weeks, which was amazing. And then I moved back to Mexico. And after 6 months, I decided that actually it was not where I wanted to be long term. A lot of shifts have happened in the last year. And I moved back. So I've been back, I think, exactly 4 months now.
4 months, jeez.
Yeah,
time's flying.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and so there's going to be some people listening to this episode that know who you are and what you do, but your business being online, do you want to just give some other people context? Because my follower count has doubled since we originally spoke. So,
okay. Welcome, guys.
If you're just getting up to speed.
This is who I am and this is what I do. So I'm a women's health and fitness coach. I do have a business online. I coach women remotely. And I do also now coach face-to-face as well. So that has been a massive shift.
Yay, to face-to-face.
Yes, because we love real-life human interaction, and online is absolutely incredible. I love being able to work with women all over the world, or just those that are not geographically close to me. But what I did come to realize is I felt very limited in the people that I could work with, because online coaching is not for everyone. You do have to be at a certain level in terms of your skill development, your experience, all of that.
Yeah.
And I felt a bit limited with who I could work with. And also, I'm a people person. I just love face-to-face coaching. So now I have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you say that, because I had a friend of mine yesterday. She was like, oh, how you going? She's in Colombia at the moment. And she's like, have you found a good community yet of like guys that you can hang out with? Because I've just met this guy and he's got this online community that he sort of has, and, you know, where men can sort of go on and talk about their stuff together. And I was like, yeah, thanks for the offer, but after the pandemic, I'm screen timed out.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm all fatigued from screen time. I'm going to try and limit the amount of screen time I have. And if it comes to anything to do with, like, for example, you know, we went from pre-pandemic where everything was pretty normal, we'll say, and then suddenly you're doing your yoga class online and you're catching up with your friends online and you're working online. And so I'm just trying to scale back, because I'm like you, I love human interaction. And I think there's a place in our lives to have a balance. But right now is an important time to bring back as much in person as you can. So it's great to hear that you've sort of diversified your offering.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because it's very healthy.
It is.
To have, like, you know what I've really missed? Hugs.
Oh, I'm such a hugger. So
Really?
I hear you.
Did we
Yeah,
hug?
I'm a real
Did we
hugger.
hug before?
We actually didn't. You know why? It's only because I had so many shopping bags in my arms.
Yeah.
But we'll hug once we finish, because I'm such a hugger. And I was very blessed in that during COVID, I only was locked down for 2.5 months, 3 months maybe. And the first couple of weeks, I loved it, because I do love my alone time. And then I started to find it really difficult. Had booked my flight home, and then it was once I was back in community with people and having that physical touch that I was like, actually, this is what I was missing. I wasn't missing home. I was just missing being around people. And so then for pretty much all of COVID, I wasn't having my relationships through a screen, which I'm absolutely just so blessed to have experienced. But yeah, I do find it very difficult to connect with people. I'm not going to say I find it difficult to connect with people online, but I'm human. Like, we are communal creatures. We're supposed to exist in community. We have since the start of time. And I don't want to have my relationships through a screen.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, I think just you said we're human, we're communal, but also we're gifted with these, I had to count for a second, 5 senses. And these 5 senses are smell, sight, taste, sound, and the last one, because I was going to say that for the most important one.
Okay, you're saying that for last one.
I was saving it for last. Touch.
If no one could see, I was rubbing my fingers together in case he was forgetting the most important.
you were playing, what is that, like charades or something with me? You were like, you know, it starts with T, you know, and yeah, like, and a human experience is governed by those 5 senses. And then some would say that, you know, there's elements of spirituality, like, you know, in all religions and other sort of esoteric practices, there's that 6th sense of like faith. It's not something that you necessarily can see, but when you have it and then things work out in your life, you're like, oh. So you could say that there's 6 senses, but let's just say there's 5. And without all 5 being possible in your life, you're not fully experiencing it. You know what I mean? So I think in relationships, in work, in whatever, if you're not getting touch, if things aren't tactile, then you're living life only using 4 out of the 5 senses that you've been gifted in this world. If you are so lucky to have been gifted all 5.
Exactly.
But anyway, yeah, I'm going to have another bite of my bratwurst.
Bite of your bratwurst.
And so at what point did you sort of realise that you had to come back? Like, was there a morning that you just woke up and you were like, I just have to come back? Or was it like a slow kind of, you know, progression of feelings that culminated into like, yeah, I'm just going to book a flight home now?
Honestly, it was kind of both. So there was a wedding that I was invited to in February. So I decided that I was going to come back for at least a visit at that point to Melbourne. Yep. So wedding was in Melbourne. It was a wedding I really wanted to be a part of. And this was I'm going to say June, July, maybe. All the months blend into one. Around then, and so I had decided that I would come home for a visit. And then I was going through a period of feeling like I was living a little bit out of alignment, specifically in relation to my profession. I was feeling a little bit stuck. I was feeling like I just wasn't living up to my true potential. And I came to realize that this is a little bit of a pattern in my life where I was staying in a place that felt safe. And it was enough, but it wasn't ultimately what I wanted to create. And once I came to this realization, I realized all the different ways that it has played out in my life, honestly, specifically professionally. And because I have lived a very colourful life and a life that is very, I'm going to say, for many people is admirable in many ways. I have travelled a lot, and travel was always a very easy justification for why I was not taking that next step, because I had a trip planned, because I lived the digital nomad life, because I did X, Y, Z. No, I'm good, thank you. I'm being offered some, I don't know, something.
Fish.
Okay.
See, how good is it recording at the market, people? No, that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
How good is that?
You got his
free food.
You got his throwaways. He just said he was going to throw them out.
Well,
Do
anyway.
they taste like shit?
It still tastes good.
Yeah, and so I just realised that I was not 100% doing what I wanted to do. And I was speaking with a very close, very old friend one night, and I was talking about the fact that I was considering maybe coming home. And she said to me, Morgan, I find this very interesting because you felt like it was time to come home 3 years ago. And so you came home, and then you came home and you weren't happy here, so you wanted to go back to Mexico. And now you've gone back to Mexico and you're not happy there either, so you want to come home again. And she said, is it really about the place? And I've always known that it's not about the place. It is always about you, and that no amount of traveling is going to solve what is inside of you. And I make absolutely no excuses for the fact that I have traveled extensively to try and run away from situations. I've never lied about that.
It should have been a trigger warning for the audience.
Yeah, sorry guys. Put that in the show notes. And so
I think a lot of people can relate.
For sure. And that can serve its purpose as well. Traveling has been an incredible space for me, as I spoke about last time, to explore the parts of myself that I didn't feel like I could here without all of the noise of home. But also, at that point, I was 31, and I've never wanted
How old are you now?
I'm 32.
29? I've gone backwards.
I'll claim it. Yeah, at that point, I was 31, and I've never envisaged a life of travel forever. Traveling was always something that I was going to do in my life, and then I would settle somewhere. And as the years roll by, it's like, okay, so when is that point going to be? And there was kind of a process over a couple of days of just really returning to what it is that I wanted to create professionally, what it is that I'm driven by. I've always been someone who's driven by impact. I studied international development as well. It's always been about creating the biggest impact. So I had a pretty honest conversation with myself about what does a business look like for me where I can have the biggest impact. And I do believe that for me, it's a combination of online and in-person training. And I also just became pretty clear that Mexico actually wasn't where I wanted to live long term. I absolutely love it. It is my second home. It will always be a place that is really, really special for me, but it's not where I want to live long term. And that combined with, during COVID, I was really lucky because everyone that was living there was there for an extended period, 6 months, 12 months, whatever. Now the world is open, and it's still a digital nomad community, and what that means is that people come and go. And it's a very transient place, and I don't actually want to live a life where I'm constantly having to rebuild my relationships.
Yeah.
I want to live in community alongside people long term, and so Mexico wasn't the place for me. And once I made my decision to come home, it felt really good.
Enjoying the episode so far? Be sure to follow us and leave us a review on whichever podcast platform you're listening on. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the episode. Yeah.
So that's a very long answer to how I came to the decision to come home. So I feel like it was a long time coming in that I'd been in this period for a while of feeling like something was not right. I wasn't in alignment.
Yeah.
But then everything kind of came together quite quickly.
Yeah. It takes a lot of courage to listen to the voices inside your head that are like, this doesn't feel right. I need to do something about this. Because I feel like we can ignore that intuition a lot in our lives. We can spend a long time ignoring those inner feelings that we have. So obviously you have that, which is, you know, a really virtuous trait. But then you've also got your friend who was like, knock, knock, you know, hello. Like, you know, making sure that they're calling you out on your potential bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, which, how good are friends for that?
I have always actively surrounded myself with people that are going to call me on my bullshit. I don't need people to continuously validate me. I want friends that are going to call me out, to tell me that I was being the shitty one, to challenge me, and also to be like, you know, I don't have the answer, but to ask the questions. And if I need to ask that question of myself, they're the people that we should be surrounding ourselves with, in my opinion. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. And then also that notion of the transient community not doing it for you like you thought it might. You know, that makes a lot of sense. You know, I think the human experience is, you know, we're so lucky that we can have so much in this life. And you've experienced, like you said, you've had a very colourful life and you've experienced a lot and you've travelled a lot. But ultimately, I think it was actually, you know, Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That's the one. Have you read that one?
I actually haven't, no.
Yeah, so I didn't get this from him or that book, but when I heard this in that book, it resonated with me because it's actually a way I think as well. And, you know, as humans, eventually we need depth of some sort in our situations. You know, like you can't keep dating around. Eventually you need to settle and just pick a partner, as an example. It's only when you do that you can sort of start to reach the depth of what a relationship looks like. Or, you know, it's only when you commit to a job for a while that you can experience the depth of being there for a while and what it means to go from being someone that started to now being someone that people look up to. You know, all of that takes time and commitment. And as humans, we need roots, don't we? Like, we're like trees. We need to be able to root ourselves somewhere and let those roots, or it's like plant yourself somewhere and let the roots kind of spread through the earth. And when that happens, you start to develop these connections underground with the myceliums or whatever it is that enables you to feel or to experience the richness of that depth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's also a really big element here of... It does. And like, but at the same time, I would say that the relationships that I had in Mexico were incredibly deep. They're my best friends in the world. I still speak to some of them every single day, honestly, more than I do probably anyone else. And for that, technology is amazing. But it's that when you're all travelers, I don't want to constantly have to rebuild that depth of connection. And then tying into what you were saying about, you know, it's only kind of with time that things can grow. I think also, if I speak for myself, there's a lot of shiny object syndrome, and you always think that there's like the next best thing is where the answer is. And I think because I had lived a very exciting life life very much in the fast lane and very spontaneous, the thought of just being for a while first of all, it never felt like Melbourne was where I wanted that place to be. But I think that acknowledging that life is not always meant to be easy and exciting, and that hard times are also a part of life, and just being pretty honest with myself about the fact that every time things felt hard, I ran away to a place that felt easier, where either I didn't have to acknowledge it or I didn't have to deal with it or whatever. And I think when it's something like travel, people don't challenge you on it a lot of the time. If it was drugs and alcohol that I was escaping in, they would. So for me, and this is kind of where I'm coming to now as well. For Lui, it was drugs and alcohol. For me, it was traveling. But it's really the same process as well of just escaping reality, escaping what was my reality. Okay, some forms of escapism are more detrimental than the other, but at the end of the day, you're just not dealing with the uncomfortable emotions. And that's kind of honestly where I'm at now. I've been back for 4 months, and my first 3 months were life in the fast lane, and everything was so exciting and so new, and I felt so good to be home, and I still feel great to be home. But now there's some challenges coming up, and it's not gonna lie.
Oh, really?
Booking a flight back to Mexico feels great, but I'm not going to do it because I do love my life.
You have,
here.
haven't you? You've booked a
No,
flight.
I haven't.
Show me your phone. Show me your phone.
I haven't. But it has been very interesting to sit and observe those feelings come up of wanting to run away when things feel a bit overwhelming. I'm feeling a bit burnt out and being like, actually, no, like, how do we deal with this in the moment?
When you figure it out, let me know.
Okay, I will.
Yeah. No, I can relate. I can relate to that feeling a lot. And yeah, so your friend was calling you out on actual bullshit and not just, pretend.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a hypothesis, but yeah, okay. Are you open to sharing? Like, what is the uncomfortable feeling that you get, or the feeling of feeling out of your comfort zone, or the feeling of whatever it is that you feel like you need to escape from? What is that for you?
You mean like when I've travelled in the past?
No, when you feel like, oh shit,
I
want to book a flight out of here because things are getting tough. And what is that tough thing? What is that challenging thing? You don't have to share, but I really want you to. All right. Let me go first.
Okay.
Let me go first.
You go first.
Yeah, because I don't want you to feel like I'm throwing you under a bus.
No,
I'm
no,
asking you
not
to
at
do
all.
something that I wouldn't do myself.
I don't feel like that at all.
You know what? I think I identified recently that I hate feeling alone, or that feeling of loneliness comes from times when I'm alone. Mind you, I'm a bit of an ambivert. There's only so much time around other people that I can have before I need to recharge my batteries. But sometimes I'm at home and I'm just thinking, God, phone hasn't rung, no one's asking you out, no one wants to have dinner with you. When was the last time someone cuddled up to you in bed? When was the last time someone woke up and made you breakfast? All of those things. And, suddenly it's like, right, text Maddie, text someone, text anyone. Let's go out, and let's have a bender. And that's the unfortunate reality of the last 15 years, or more, is like trying to escape the fact that sometimes I realize that I'm just with myself, and that's it. There's no one else around, and that sucks. And I've never dealt with it. I never actually properly dealt with it. So, for me, that's what it is. That feeling of alone and, oh God, there's no one here to rescue you.
I think that's very common as well. I don't think you're alone in that experience. And I think that the problem is as well is that abuse of drugs and alcohol is very common and is very socially acceptable here. And most people are actually just not aware of the fact that their relationship with drugs and alcohol is driven by that feeling of loneliness.
This is why I don't pay for a therapist, because I can just catch up with Morgan. And this is like therapy. Coffee, bratwurst, diverse market culinary experiences, people giving you free food, and like real proper life advice. But yeah, I would agree with that. That's common. I found myself in rooms where I'm like, this is a very low point in my life, and I'm looking around the room going, probably for all of them too.
Yeah. And I think that is a real issue that I'm currently having with social media, where obviously we all know that it's a highlight reel and we compare our everyday to other people's highlight reels. And so it makes you think that you have something wrong with you when you feel lonely or alone or whatever it may be. Whereas we're all having these experiences to some capacity at some point in our lives, whether it's right now or whether it's at another point in our life. I feel like it's a part of the human experience as well. And especially in today's day and age, like we were talking about, we're communal beings and we're living quite isolated lives. So I think that it's a lot more common than you realize. And I think that when there's, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like there's like almost an element of shame there in feeling that as well, because then you feel like you're a little bit alone in that experience.
Yes. For anyone that knows that social media giant influencer Cabby is like this African guy who does these like miming kind of skits. He's like your modern day Charlie Chaplin, you'd say. And at the end of it, when he does a skit, he does this kind of action with his hands to be like, see, there it is. I told you so. You're like... So, yeah. I mean, basically everything you just said just then. But yeah, the shame, that's a real part. Like that's a, you know, because in order for something to continue to perpetuate in your life, there needs to be that thing that brings it around to make it circular. Does that make sense? So first there's that feeling of feeling like, you know, alone or lonely or a feeling of lack of self-worth. And if that exists in isolation, then it doesn't lead to perpetuity of it, if that makes sense. You need the shame to bring it back. Shame and then back again. So,
well, I also think that there comes a point where, like, you're at the point where you know what it is that you're feeling. If you're feeling alone or isolated or whatever it may be, I think that then you're also in a position to take the reins and say, so if this is not what I want to feel, what can I do about it? Like, how can I change that? And I was at a point before I went to Mexico last year. I'd come out of a relationship. I was feeling honestly pretty shit. Took me a while to get through that. And I got to a point one day and I was like, I'm just sick of feeling like shit. So what am I going to do about it? And so I realized that I didn't have that many strong connections here. So I started going to events which were likely to have the types of people that I wanted to connect with. I started to put myself in spaces, reconnect with old friends, actively reach out, do things that I knew made me feel good. I got back on my yoga mat. I started to do the things that I know make me feel good, because at the end of the day, like, our human experience is our responsibility. And we can sit there and say, like, I feel lonely, I have no friends, I have no good connections, I feel shit in my body, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for that and you can change that.
I agree.
And I think that is a difficult responsibility for people to accept, because it's a lot easier to complain in your current situation than to do the hard thing. It's not necessarily easy as an adult to go and put yourself in a social situation where you don't know anyone. But the truth is, if you want to make good connections and deep connections, then you've got to work for them. They're not just going to come to you. Sorry, man.
All of these reality hits. But I really agree. You know, one of my sort of sayings that I sort of came up with last year is, you know, people are talking about inclusion a lot. Oh, you've got to make it inclusive. You've got to make this inclusive. That's got to be inclusive. Oh, I just want everyone to know that we're making this an inclusive space. No, the inclusion starts with the individual, right? The inclusion starts with you. Like, in order to be included, you need to first want to be included. And that's what sort of that reminds me of. Because, yeah, I mean, you can go into some environments where, you know, it's going to be hard to be included. But if you go into an environment and sort of sit there in your little shell and you kind of, oh, it's hard for me to make friends because I'm an introvert. Well, you know, like, eventually you're going to have to overcome that and say hello to someone. So I agree with you. You know, if I think that, then I have to think that, and I agree with you there. But yeah, that's damn it. Talking to you sometimes is no, it's great. But I feel like what else did you say just there? That you said something else wise and brilliant as usual. But then I sort of realised, hang on, are we talking about me or are we talking about you again? Have you just deflected? Is that what we've done?
No, I'm ready now. I've had time to think about what I was going to say.
I let you off the hook a little bit by being, you know what, I definitely put you on the spot there. But then I was like, hey, that was 10 minutes ago now.
No, I needed to think about my answer for a little bit.
Good. How do you think and talk at the same time? You're so talented.
I'll stop it. Okay, so for me, it was leaning into what felt new and difficult. And the two go together for me.
New and difficult.
Yeah. So whether this was professionally, whether it was on a personal level, we're creatures of comfort, and I'm no different in that sense. And so it was, when it came to doing the thing that I ultimately wanted to do, specifically professionally, that was when I would book the flight instead.
Really?
Yeah. And honestly, it's rooted in a fear of failure, because if I try and I fail, then I've actually failed. But if I'm instead busy traveling and experiencing all these wonderful places, then I haven't actually failed. I'm still going to do it, but I'll just do it later once I've either done this trip or once I have this qualification or once I've done the next thing, then I'll do the thing that I actually want to do. So I've lived in proximity to the things that I say that I want, where I'm close enough that I feel like I'm kind of doing it, but I'm not actually doing the thing. And so this year, I decided this was my year of doing the uncomfortable things. And it has involved working on my money story. It has involved some pretty deep reflection on what it is that I'm actually wanting to create for myself, and recognizing when those feelings of resistance come up, that fear around failure, the fear around maybe not being good enough, of my vision not 100% coming to life, and leaning into that fear instead of wanting to run away from it.
Side question.
Yeah.
How many clients do you have at the moment, approximately?
I think I'm working with about 20 people.
Okay. Those 20 people are getting serious bang for their buck with you. I'm just going to say.
I'll send them this episode just in case I need a reminder. No, my clients are the most incredible people in the world. They really are. They bring me so much joy.
Yeah, because I think this kind of, these realizations that you have, they're much more profound than things I normally talk to people about. You know, addressing the fear, you know, coming clean about it, you know, being okay to talk about it.
Because we all have it. I think that it's just kind of what we were saying before, is that whether it's loneliness, whether it's fear of doing the uncomfortable things, whatever it is, we're not alone in this human experience. It's just that no one wants to admit that they're actually feeling it too. Because we want to look like we have it all together all the time, which is why I kept booking the flights, because that made me look like I had it all together.
Yeah. Vacay. Yeah. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, I was just sitting there thinking, gosh, you know, and so part of the coaching that you do, because, yeah, when I'm on your social media, on your Instagram, there's a lot of physical activity. I'd say you're at the gym, sort of just generally being a weapon, lifting weights that I don't think I could lift.
I'm sure you could. You're so much stronger than you realise.
There you are. She doesn't stop coaching, by the way. She's in coach mode 24/7. You're so much stronger than you realise. Go, Louie.
2 more.
Yeah. But, yeah.
What you're saying when you're on my socials and I'm being a weapon.
Yeah. Basically, keep going. You're like, I like this. No. What I was going to say is that, you know, it seems like a lot of your activity is really based in that sort of physical world and not as much in the emotional or mental world. But yet, obviously, when I hear you speak, it's like, oh, there's a lot of thought that's gone into, you know, being able to get to this place. You don't get to these places in your life where not only have you had these realizations, but you've worked through them, you understand the roots of them, and you're comfortable to talk about them in a market. Surrounded by strangers.
Surrounded by strangers with a mic.
You know, like the coaching that you offer, it has to be holistic, surely.
Oh, it is.
Because it's
yeah, and I
such a
appreciate the
mindset.
feedback. I appreciate the feedback on my socials as well, because I often think, do my socials reflect me in my entirety, and do they reflect what I deliver in its entirety?
You
and
put
perhaps
captions
not.
there.
I do.
Put captions
I
there,
do.
and the captions are rooted in depth.
Yeah.
But then in the background, you know, like you've got these, like, you know, got these biceps, and and you know, like, you got to forgive people for not reading the caption from time to time. I'm just gonna say.
Okay, I'll put some less eye-capturing images to make people read my captions. But to what you were saying, yes, 100%. I don't think that you can ever, in my opinion, address the physical without addressing the lifestyle that goes alongside it, without addressing the mindset that goes alongside it, without addressing what you're putting in your body in every sense. And one thing that I work with my clients on always is not only what they want to achieve physically, but what they want to achieve in terms of habits. And habits, life, themselves. One of the first exercises I get my clients to do, and this is something that I speak quite a bit about on my socials, is imagining the person that you want to become. Who is she? What does she do with her spare time? How does she feel in her body? What do her daily rituals look like? How does she act in particular situations? What are her relationships like? And I think that when you have a really clear idea of that, it can help to govern the decisions that you make on the daily. And that doesn't just include how she looks and what her muscle definition is. That is to do with her relationship with herself and her relationship with the world. And it can be a constantly evolving image of what you see for yourself. But to answer your question, yes, my coaching is very holistic. And I think that truly for sustainability, I believe that it has to be, because the data shows us anyway that being motivated by purely physical results is a pretty weak motivator.
Yeah. So I'm having another deep thought there about everything you say. You know what I couldn't help but sort of reflect on as well, just for a moment, and not to digress too far from what you just said, but just for a moment I realized, damn, maybe I told a pretty, I don't know, sad story about myself before. But then, when I made the weapon comment, I was like, thinking to myself, who else is a little weapon? My 15-year-old daughter. She called me up last night. She's like, look, Dad, I broke my finger playing rugby. She was so proud.
What a cool bitch.
She was so proud. And we spent an hour on the phone together, and I was like, times have been pretty dark in my head lately, but then I spent an hour on the phone with her, and I'm like, yes, someone loves me. And she's cool. And she was talking to me about working out, and her school took her on an excursion to this hectic weightlifting gym where there's like these bodybuilding champions and trophies everywhere, and they had them running through exercises and teaching them how to do them properly. And I said to her, I hope they were talking to you about good posture. And she was like, yeah, Dad, they would like tuck your bum in and lift your neck up and keep your back straight. And just seeing her so motivated, and she's a young woman now, I suppose. Yeah, she's a young woman, and she's really motivated to be fit, and active, which is probably in her DNA. And I love seeing it. And one of my greatest fears is that for her, at some point, there's no connection between the physical and the mental. There's no connection between the physical and the emotional, or that there's a disconnection. If it currently exists, that at some point it breaks away and disconnects. That makes sense. And so hearing you talk, it's nice to know that that's something that you work with your clients on, and that you have that mindset that they're not exclusive. They belong together. A healthy mind, healthy heart, healthy body, healthy soul. And I just pray that, my 15-year-old, if she has it, which I feel like she does, she never loses it. Because I think there might come a time in everyone's life where we forget who we are and what we have to offer, or we might be fooled into believing that what we have to offer is purely just physical.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the society that we live in places a lot of emphasis on the physical. And I feel as though most people will probably go through a period in their life where they do lose that connection. And I think that I can only speak from the experience of a woman, but I think that you'd be pretty rare if there wasn't a period in your life where your decisions are governed by looking a particular way. But there is a journey out of that as well, and there is a journey back to yourself. And I think that for me, what I believe and what governs my coaching is that there's so many reasons to move your body. There are so many reasons to eat in particular ways. There are so many reasons to go for walks and get fresh air and all of that. And it's not just about a step count or a number on the scales or how much you can squat, but it's an act of showing up for yourself. It's your mental health. I've been injured for the last 6 weeks.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And it's been hard. It's been really, really hard. And I would be lying. It would be out of integrity for me not to acknowledge that it has also been difficult for me to see changes in my body. I'm not immune to that. I have a very, very loving relationship with my body. I think that it's absolutely incredible what it has been through. And I am so grateful for my abilities and all of that. But I'm also not going to lie that when you're in the health and fitness space, there's a lot of focus on your body. When you do look very fit, which I'm going to say I do.
I can attest to that.
There's a lot tied to that, and there's a lot of pressure to maintain that as well. And when I haven't been able to walk for over a month,
Really?
let alone train, with an old back injury that flared up, I've had knee problems. I couldn't even walk to the end of my street, and I've gone from someone that was training 5 days a week and at plus one run, plus, walking my X number of steps every day, a very, very active lifestyle. To go from that to nothing overnight, of course there's going to be changes in your body. And so even for me, for someone that is at a point where I have a really loving and really peaceful relationship with my body, I know that I train because I love it. That has been hard, having that taken away from me, but then also seeing the light in the situation and realizing that if training is one way that I take care of my body, how else do I take care of my body? I can also take care of my body by resting as well.
If you haven't already, find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or TikTok, where you can catch additional content and grace us with your thoughts. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of the episode. Yeah, at some point, the thing that you love is going to be taken away from you. And so you've got to think about preparing yourself for that moment sometimes.
100%. Change is the only constant.
Yeah.
And I say this to people often when they've achieved the physical results that they were working towards, that's amazing, but don't place too much emphasis on it, because you're not going to have it forever. And it's great that whatever physical results you were working for, that's a symbol of your hard work, so well done. But it doesn't actually say anything about who you are as a person, or your value, or your beauty, or any of that. It actually has no intrinsic meaning whatsoever. And I think that when you're aware of that, and this is a process, I acknowledge that it's a process. It's a process that I'm in as well myself, but you can accept the change a little easier when it comes, because if it wasn't an injury as a woman, if I get pregnant, my body's going to look different. Whatever it may be, there are multiple things that are going to influence the way that our bodies look. And I've always said that I hope my body is the least beautiful thing about me. And I say that to all of my female clients. And males should accept that as well, actually.
Yeah, about themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, well, at some point you have to. I mean, you're talking to a 39-year-old here. Like, I'm just getting grayer. And I'll tell you what, because I have an addiction to the donut stand here at the Queen Victoria Market, and I come and buy a 5-pack for $10 pretty much once a week and scoff them all pretty much while they're hot. Seeing your body change is confronting, and you have to look past it. You have to learn how to forgive yourself. You have to learn how to be okay with who you are.
I think you have to learn to love yourself in all of your seasons. And what I often return to, what really helps me, is no matter what stage I'm at, when I'm at my fittest, when I'm at my strongest, whatever, I'm still very aware of the fact that at my funeral, I hope no one is mentioning my biceps. I hope that they're talking about how I made them feel.
Your glutes, then.
The glutes I worked a little harder for. The biceps are a gift of being a child gymnast, but the glutes I work for.
Yeah,
No.
you mention that. You guys can mention that. It's fine. But not too. What I'm hearing, just don't put too much emphasis on it.
Don't put too much emphasis on it. I'd prefer if you spent more time talking about the type of person that I was.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just it comes back to that whole sure, you can have a beautiful body, but don't let that detract from the things that actually matter.
And don't let the funeral come to a close without mentioning the glutes. But also don't spend too long. No, I think I love it, it's important to, you know what else? Actually, it's important to set an example for others in our society and community. I think, when you take full responsibility for who you are physically, emotionally, mentally, that's doing your community a service. When you practice bodily autonomy in a way of making sure that you go to bed early at night so that you don't wake up feeling tired, so that you don't get sick after a month of late nights or whatever. That's doing your community a service. That's leading by example. So it's not just always about the self. There's so much more value to your greater community by looking after yourself.
Yeah, for sure. The way that you show up for yourself impacts the way that you show up in the world. And I find it really interesting when people say that they don't have time to exercise, or they're too busy working so they can't go to bed at a reasonable hour, that they, whatever it may be. And it's just, the work one is really interesting, because when you take care of yourself physically in relation to exercise, diet, sleep, rest, social health, this impacts the way that you perform at work. When you're well rested and you're taking care of yourself physically, this impacts the way that you show up in your relationships as well. I am such a stickler for sleep, because I know when I am tired, I am less emotionally regulated. I am more cranky. I'm not the version of myself that I know is the best.
You must have slept well last night.
I slept a little too much last night. But I'm not the best version of myself, and I don't like the way that I show up in my relationships when I'm not emotionally regulated, or when I feel like I'm short, when I feel like I'm grumpy. And I want to show up as the best version of myself in all areas of my life. And I'm really clear on what the habits are that keep me in that place. And it comes back to taking responsibility for ourselves. And I think that also what you were speaking to about our example, you can preach whatever you like. You can say all the words. If you're not walking your shit, it doesn't mean anything. People don't listen to your words if your actions aren't in alignment.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, maybe it's true.
Yeah.
I think, one of the less fortunate sides of the rise of social media has given everyone a voice. So now we've become captivated by all these voices. But I think there's been a disconnect between what people say and what people do as the important thing. And I just couldn't agree more. Walk the fucking talk. And if you can't, then shut up. That's just what I think. I told my daughter not to ever tell anyone to shut up, by the way. I'm such a hypocrite. Don't ever tell anyone to shut up, I said to her. And there I am just telling the world to shut up. But only if you're talking and what you say is disconnected to what you do. That's not authentic. And the episode I just released last night, episode 36 with a boys' weekend one. Oh, it's a...
I saw there was a very long trigger warning on that one. I haven't listened to it, but apparently there's a lot of harsh language.
Yeah. Drug use, sexual references, all of the above. But ultimately, I do call out that despite all the debauchery, if you look deeply and if you listen carefully, you'll just find people with good values at the heart of it. And one of the guys in that weekend, his name's Nathan, he's studying psychology or counselling or all of it. And he was talking about he likes to listen carefully to the things that people say to see if they match up with the things that they do. He likes to observe that what they say is like what they do. And I'm like, oh, God, that's so good. I'm so glad someone's saying that, because, like I said, everyone's got a voice these days, but who's actually out there walking the talk? They're the people we should be looking up to. Even if you say something that's, controversial, a true sign that you believe in what you say is that you follow it up with the actions that are correlated with those words.
I think often when we say things out loud, we're speaking to ourselves more than we're actually speaking to anyone else. And so when we say, I am a particular type of person, or this is what I believe, sometimes we're trying to also just reaffirm that within ourselves as well, to remind ourselves of what we believe. Because I actually think that the greatest impact we often have is the impact that we don't realize. It's just in who we are and how we are. And when I think about the people that have had the biggest impact on me, it's not actually what they've necessarily told me or said, but it's how they've shown up, whether it's how they show up in the world, whether it's how they show up for me as a friend, the way that they listen. No one can tell me how to be a good listener, but I learned how to be a better listener by having friends who were incredible listeners. And the same with the body piece as well, is that when I went through a long journey of really coming to peace with my body and really loving myself in all of my seasons. I was living in Mexico at the time, and I went through a really healing journey with my breasts, and it was a part of my body that I had always felt very self-conscious about. And we weren't friends on social media then, but there was a lot of topless photos being posted, and
Hopefully the
with some flowers over the nipples because they're female breasts, not male.
Sorry, we just got a motorbike situation here. I think they're trying to mute out all of the
all of the breast talk.
Yeah.
Okay,
You get those reminders of the stories that you used to post come up, right?
But that journey was for me. It was never for anyone else. But what I realized in that journey was how much permission I inadvertently gave to the women around me to also explore that side of themselves as well. And I only realized that after the fact, when people said to me that it had made them feel particular ways, that they wanted to explore that side of themselves, that they realized that was a journey that they actually wanted to embark on as well. And that was never my intention. The journey was always for me. My confidence has always been for myself. And I think it was such a reminder of the fact that we influence people in ways that we're so oblivious to. And so instead of speaking the wise words and saying all the right things and telling people what we think they should do, that if we actually just show up as the best, most evolving versions of ourselves, that's actually how we impact the world.
Yeah, it's like if you're too busy hiding your flaws and your insecurities, then everyone else will too. And no one will come clean and growth won't happen.
Exactly. And that's why the vast majority of the time, I have an incredible relationship with my body. I love it. It's great. I honestly don't give it that much thought, but I'm still human and I'm not immune to those challenges as well. And there are days that are a little hard, and I'm not going to sit here and sell a level of confidence that is potentially not obtainable for a lot of people, at least not consistently.
Yeah. And confidence comes and goes.
Of course.
Yeah. That's the one thing I loved about that video game, Tony Hawk's.
My brother used to play that.
Everyone's brother used to play that. Everyone's brother used to play that. Yeah, there's a special aspect to that game, right, where if you land a few tricks in a row, the confidence meter goes up. And eventually, if you land like enough tricks in a row, your confidence meter just stays on like incredible. Like you can't fall off, you can't fail. And what I love about that game is that it's so based on real life. You know, you have one success after the other, or something else goes good, or you know, suddenly everything's going good. You can't do anything wrong. But what happens in the game as well is if you eventually attempt something way too challenging and you stack, the confidence bar breaks. And it's a reminder that, you know, like confidence is never there permanently. It'll come and go in waves. And sometimes you'll be riding highs and sometimes you'll be, you know, starting from scratch again. And one of the things that, because I did read the caption here, I read the caption. I'm going to prove it. Oh, no.
You lost it. You were going to quote me back to me and you forgot it.
Yeah. I think you said something about not being perpetually motivated, but motivation doesn't last forever. You need discipline. Am I right?
Yep, you got it.
Yeah.
You got it. It's
proof that I read the captions.
was this on my story the other day?
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that there's an idea that the people that are very probably motivated in many ways and are also disciplined, that it's always easy for them. And it's not. And it's specifically in relation to health and fitness. People say, I'm just not motivated. Yet, like, very few people are motivated to do things that are really hard.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that. As humans, we are not wired to want to do the really hard things. We want to play it safe, to do what's easy.
That's so true.
And so the people that you see that are constantly showing up for themselves and doing the hard things, sure, they probably do get a level of enjoyment out of it. If I'm speaking for myself, I do really love it. It doesn't mean it's easy for me to get there every day. But if I'm returning to that idea that I was saying before about the type of woman that I want to be, the type of woman that I want to be is someone that does what she says she's going to do, that does the things that she knows that are good for her, even when maybe she doesn't want to, that she's true to her word. That is really, really important to me, to be that type of person. So on those days that I cannot be fucked going to the gym, I still go, because that is the type of person that I want to be.
What do you do there when It's like you just walk in the door and just buzz in and sort of just like stretch and then buzz out.
No. I've got my program. That's why you need a training program, because if you don't have a program, that's what you do.
Right.
You just go in, meander around a little bit, realize it's too hard, you don't know what to do, and you leave. But no, this is why I have a program as well, because I know that's something that makes it easier for me.
Yep.
And I believe it makes it easier for everyone. All you need to do is get in there and you just follow the steps.
Yep.
And you give your, also knowing that your best is going to look different every day. But yeah, looking at that like motivation piece is that we do. That saying, motivation gets you started, discipline keeps you going. But it's true. And also just acknowledging that there's going to be days that you don't want to. There's going to be days that things feel harder. Like this is all a part of the human experience. And I think this is where social media is giving us a very warped perception of what is normal. And so we think that our experience is abnormal because we're not feeling motivated and because we find discipline hard and all of these things. But actually you're like everyone else. You're not special.
Yeah, I can imagine like there's a lot of negative connotations with the word discipline. You know, I think, yeah, there's likely to be a lot of negative connotations with that word because it's so rooted in like being a servant potentially, or being a slave, or, you know, having some authority that you're subservient to or that you need to answer to in some way. I think discipline can be a challenge for people because there's that association with authority. Does it make sense?
It does.
Yeah,
But you can reframe it in a different way as well. And that's why I often use the words like showing up for yourself.
Yeah, devil's advocate, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, you nailed it, right? Like discipline's the thing that pushes you through when motivation's not there. But why do we glorify motivation so much, and why not discipline?
I think because motivation feels good.
Feels good.
It does. We all love to feel motivated. Motivation feels good, but it's a feeling, and there's not a single feeling that lasts forever.
I'm going to reframe it. Like, let's say that, you know, you're in a bar or somewhere and you see someone that's really attractive on the other side of the room, right? And you feel compelled to want to approach that person and start a conversation. When you're motivated, that's really, really good. You know, that's generally going to be a great experience. But when you're not motivated to do it, and you're doing it because you said you were going to do it once a day, every day, and you're doing it out of discipline, that could go wrong. You know what I mean? Like, so I see the merit in being motivated to do things as that motivation makes things easier to do, it makes them more enjoyable, and you're more likely to succeed when you're motivated, I think. When you're just being disciplined, there's risk.
There is.
Flat on your face.
There is, but I really think that it depends on the context. It depends
It
why you're
using the worst
upholding your
possible
discipline
context.
as well. I think that's a terrible context to use. But I think that it really depends on what the situation is, on why you're doing it as well, and why it's important that you stay disciplined. And I'm also a massive advocate for being kind to yourself as well, and having honest conversations about when is the time to push and when is the time to pull back. Because we also live in a world that is go, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle. And I think that we also need more space for being softer with ourselves as well. So it's about having honest conversations with yourself about where your priorities lie. Is this something that I seek to be really disciplined with? Are my expectations of myself reasonable as well? You know, do you really need to be disciplined to go to the gym 5 days a week? Probably not, but maybe 3, you know. So I think that there's both sides. And I think that we also live in a world where we're very hard on ourselves and we're always looking at the ways that we're not enough. And if we're speaking about health and fitness, like that doesn't need to be another area where you're feeling like you're not enough.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I think as someone who's spent the last 11 months taking cold showers, 3 minutes every morning without fail, like everything that you say resonates with me.
Yeah, so like, are you always motivated to have a cold shower in the morning? Exactly. There we go.
I don't think about it though now.
So now you don't, because you built the habit. And so this is the thing, if I'm going to speak to health and fitness, is that you get to a point, so you're motivated when you start and you feel good and that gets you started. And then you might have to go through periods of being more disciplined with yourself, showing up even when you don't really want to because you know why you want to do it.
Okay. This morning was one of those.
Okay. But you understand that on the other side, you're going to feel better, that there's now a reason behind it. And then
100%.
Exactly. And then it becomes a habit. It's just something that you do. I am at the point in my journey, because I've been going for a number of years, that I train X number of times per week. Yes or yes. It is included in my weekly schedule.
Is it 7 days?
All of these things. No, I don't train 7 days a week.
Okay.
No. Oh,
Just
God, no.
checking.
God, no. We all need rest and recovery. No one should be training 7 days. If you're listening to this and you're training 7 days, you need to rest. Yeah.
Stop right now. Put down the dumbbells.
Put down the dumbbells and go lie on the couch for it. And then you build the habit, you build the routine. But the thing is that most people will require a period of being quite disciplined to actually then get to the point where it becomes a habit and routine.
Yeah. And just thinking about my thing, well, it's 7 days. Like I'm going 7 days with the shower, and like this morning, my bed was so warm, and my pillows were so mushy, and I was just there.
The mornings are getting colder.
Yeah, and I slept in about 2 hours today. I didn't get up and do the things that I thought that I might want to do, but I just thought, as long as I make it to the city on time to meet Morgan, that's the only responsibility I have today. So I stayed in bed as long as I could, and I was like, well, all right, now I don't have time to sort of ease into the day like I normally would. Ideally, on a perfect textbook day, you get out of bed, go for the walk, maybe come back, do some stretches, do some push-ups or something, warm the body up, and then jump in the shower, right? But on days when, like I feel like I get more value out of staying in bed, guess what I do?
What?
Get straight out of bed, turn the cold tap on. That's brutal. I'm standing there butt naked for the first few seconds before jumping underneath the water. It's like, what the fuck are you doing to yourself, man? Why? Why?
So why do you do it?
And then I get in and I'm like, well, I'm here now. And then I get out and then I'm like, fuck yeah. And I know 100% that I wasn't feeling like a legend beforehand. Of course, I was dreading it. Right? And it was only 3 minutes. I'm only taking 3-minute cold showers. There's a huge change in mindset that happens in that 3 minutes when I've just gone, don't even think about it, turn the cold tap on. Why are you doing this to yourself? Just jump in. To hell yeah. That's such a huge shift in mindset.
Why do you feel like a legend on the other side?
Well, I actually honestly think there's 2 reasons. Firstly, because I've shown up for myself. And that's probably the same as the second reason, which is that's the opposite feeling to what I know I would have if I didn't do it. If I didn't do it, if I just woke up some morning and didn't do the cold shower, I would hate myself at the end of that day. I would go, you cheated yourself today. You cheated yourself out of your discipline today. That one thing that you do every day that you know is so hard but makes you feel like a god at the end of it, you didn't do that for you today. And maybe, that's not a very healthy way of looking at things. But at the same time, I know that if I ever skip a day, it's going to be it's going to be just shrouded in so much guilt for not showing up for me. And that level of guilt, I just can't live with. I would rather jump into freezing cold water in the middle of winter than feel that guilt.
Okay, I'm not entirely sure that's particularly healthy as well. I have to say that. But I do think there is a real piece there about doing the things that you say that you're going to do. And
okay. Yeah, put all the positive spins on it now, please. Can you put the Morgan layer over the top?
I don't really like feeling guilty or beating ourselves up when we don't succeed.
That's what I do.
Well, maybe we need to dive a little deeper into that. But I do think there is a very big piece there about showing up and doing the things that you say that you're going to do. And because I think that translates to so many other areas of our lives, that is a process of building our confidence within ourselves.
Resilience.
And I think so often we negotiate with ourselves as well on the things that are actually important to us. And we don't back ourselves.
It's non-negotiable, that
as
one.
well. Exactly. But this whole process as well is showing you that you're someone that when you say you're going to do something, that you do it. And so it's also now translating into sobriety for you as well. And it's going to translate into different areas of your life. Whereas if you're someone that constantly negotiates with yourself and you make promises and then you break them, then you're reaffirming that that's the type of person that you are.
Thank you. Because, when you say it that way, it's like, Yeah, I've been that person. I've negotiated with myself a lot. And I think maybe I feel so good about the cold showers because it's the first time in my life where I'm like, this is non-negotiable. It's not. And, the application of that is just it's so fulfilling. It's like you break through this murky layer that you never could before. Like you get to another stage of Tony Hawk's that you couldn't get to before or some game that you played. You get to a stage with yourself where you're just like, this is uncharted territory. I was always able to negotiate my way out of getting to here, but now I'm here. I'm at the point where I've now realized and I'm putting into practice something that's non-negotiable. And that feels so empowering, to do that. There we go. There's positives.
There is.
But I know that, like I said, if I break that promise, look, that guilt isn't going to cripple me, but there's going to be guilt. And it's going to be hard, and it's going to be really tough for me to deal with. But, I would come back the next day and start again. That's all it is.
Yeah.
But also the physical benefits of it. I'm walking around the city every day with a t-shirt on. And I'm seeing people sniffling into tissues and wearing scarves and trench coats. And I'm like, it's just turned to May. I just think the benefits of this activity are so much greater. And it's so hard to do. People are like, why are you taking cold showers? It's do you like Huberman? Oh, it's such a cult. But I'm like, if this is a cult, then sign me up. I'm a cultist. Because there's nothing more fulfilling in life than being disciplined and showing up for yourself. And like I said, I feel like you show up for your community. I don't have a cold. I don't have the flu. I don't walk around feeling cold and miserable. I walk around with a smile on my face.
Yeah, I find it really interesting when people are quite judgmental towards the habits that you choose for yourself. Because if you were to say, I can't start my day without having a cup of coffee, no one is going to shame you
Everyone
for
will
it.
go, same.
Yeah, me too, man.
Yeah.
No one's going to shame you for it.
Yeah.
It does not impact anyone whether you decide to have a cold shower or not, right? But it wakes you up in the morning and makes you feel good. And I think that when people are quite dismissive or like critical of the behaviors that you choose for yourself, I truly think that it's just because it wakes something up in them which doesn't feel good, whether they feel like they should be doing more for themselves or whatever it may be. You're not telling them that they have to do it themselves, right? This is your thing. And so, like, who really cares?
Yeah, and I think you touch on a good point there, because when you're coming up with the ideas of taking up these activities, let's just say rewind 5 years for when I first started cold showers, right? And you're sort of warming up to the idea of doing it. Not only are you having to break through some personal barriers that you had, but some community barriers as well. Like, you go around, you tell maybe a few of your friends, hey, I'm just about to start doing cold showers. Want to do them with me? Maybe you want to try and get a buddy along or something like that. Not together, I mean, like separately, but you know what I mean. And then you may be faced with that, like you put it, judgment. And there's that, feeling of not only doing something positive for yourself, potentially that you've got to break into, but also breaking away from your community at the same time. That's a challenge.
How have you found not drinking alcohol?
So easy.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. The first night I went out after I had decided to not drink was maybe 3 days after the brutal hangover that I'd had.
Okay.
And, mistakes that I had made that night. And I was out at another pub with some friends, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm off the booze, by the way. And they were ordering beers at the bar, and I could smell their beer, and I was like getting nauseous.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, yes. I was like, yes, it's real.
This is the
I
moment
really
I've
am
been waiting
quitting. And I've probably been out, including that boys' weekend, where there was moderate drug use, potentially, but no alcohol consumed. And I'm just surrounded probably about 5 or 6 times in the last 5 weeks with people just drinking all around me and alcohol being right there, like very accessible to me, and with no need or desire to take to it. And what I'm trying to do is, use that discipline of getting to 11 months straight with the cold showers and try and latch, have the no alcohol piggyback onto the back of that, and ride along with that. Does that make sense? And now I think it's probably easier to do that because of that other habit that I set that was non-negotiable.
For sure, and that confidence that you've built in yourself that you can do the hard things. That
it's not even hard. How much money have I saved?
Yeah, well, exactly.
Oh, I blew it all on podcast equipment anyway. I'm still broke.
But you know that you're someone that does the things that you say that you're going to do, that you can show up in difficult situations, or it maybe hasn't been difficult so far. There may come a time when it is, when people are not encouraging. But it's really interesting that you say that people, that it's been easy for you, because I know I haven't drunk for a number of years now, but when I had in the past gone through periods of not drinking in social situations, it was often not particularly accepted. That there was always questions about why I wasn't drinking. People would be like, just have one. People would be trying to push it on me. And I'm like, why do you care?
No one has reacted adversely to it this time around.
Okay.
I would say that every single other time in my life when I have ditched alcohol, there's been judgy questions. This time there hasn't. Even when I met the boys out on that night, when I first met Rigby and Nathan, and Maddie took me out, and we were all at the place on the corner, the joint bar on the corner of, I think it was Flinders Lane and Elizabeth Street. It's a very beery joint. It stinks like beer when you walk up the stairs. Like, yeah, hey guys, I'm not drinking. Oh, cool, mate. Oh, can we get you anything else? Yeah, lemon lime bitters. Oh, and these guys, I'm there with them for like 5 hours on a sesh, and all I'm drinking is lemon lime bitters. And there's no weirdness at all. It's just I've been so supported.
That's amazing. You have good friends.
Yeah, they're good dudes.
Yeah.
And obviously I told my boss, and my boss is supportive. Like, everyone I've told has been totally, totally cool. And that's made it easier.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, I always found it interesting when people didn't support my decision not to drink. And I always felt as though the only reason you could possibly care about whether I'm drinking or not is because you feel that it says something about you. Whether it's that deep down that you drink too much or whatever it may be. I don't know what your story is, but it's just for me, that could be the only reason that you would care why I was drinking or not. If I'm staying out exactly the same amount of hours as you, what is it to you whether I'm drinking soda water or vodka soda? It literally means nothing. And I do think that also not drinking is becoming a lot more normalized as well in our society. And the fact that your friends have been supportive is just, first of all, probably just a recognition that it has nothing to do with them, and also possibly a recognition that they know that it's probably good for you, that you're not on the booze for a bit.
Yeah, feels good. Shout out to good friends.
Shout out to good friends. Shout out to having people around you that want the best for you.
Yeah, even if they're assholes sometimes. I'm still sort of, coming to terms with how I'm going to deal with certain people in my life who have treated me pretty poorly, in a way that's, mature. Because all I've done is kind of just push them away. But they're people that you need to reconcile your differences with. And I don't think I've emotionally been ready for that yet. I think now I'm sort of getting there. And surrounding yourself with good habits first, good friends next, and building a track record of showing up for yourself enables you to take on tougher challenges, I think, later down the track. And that is probably what the challenge I'm facing next, dealing with the people that maybe haven't been as nice to you as they should be, or have treated you pretty poorly, or manipulated you in some way. I think that's the next challenge. And I think, damn, I'm going to need all the tools I can possibly have available to me in order to take on that challenge and reconcile those differences and rebuild those relationships. Because it needs to happen, but it's not going to happen if I'm not showing up for myself first. If I'm not, if I'm waking up hungover, you know what I mean? It's not going to happen. So yeah, there's part of it where I acknowledge that there's more to life and there's greater challenges out there, and you need to limit the amount of dumb shit that you're dealing with on a daily basis so that you can deal with harder stuff, and that when there's people out there that I look up to, like some adventurers and stuff, like I still really look up to Marta Mitzal, who on the podcast, episode 9, she just completed the 7 summits by climbing Kosciuszko, because the one in Indonesia is still closed. So Kosciuszko is the last one in Australasia that she could do. And I'm just like, that person sacrifices a significant amount of things in their life, going to the hairdresser, hadn't been to the hairdresser in years, which is a lot for a woman, it's therapeutic, to get your hair done, apparently. I shave it.
Apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've had my hair cut once in the last 5 years. Some paper scissors will do.
Okay. But I look up to people that sacrifice so much to achieve great things in life.
Yeah.
And I think, gosh, that's who I want to be. Going back to when you said, what do you want to feel like? What does that person look like? I'm like, that's who I want to be. I want to be someone that has been able to overcome sacrificing really petty things at first, and then maybe greater things in order to achieve some of the other things that I would really love to achieve someday. Beautiful. I've talked a lot this time, but I feel like, I've wanted this to be more conversational.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I think you give great insights off the back of the stuff that comes out of my mouth as well.
For sure. We've always said that we should have the mics attached to our voice notes. You're so full of insight. And so, at the moment, with your clients, is there a theme at the moment that keeps coming up? What are some of the things that, we've touched on a lot of things that I feel like very relevant and things that very front of mind for you, but has there been something that we haven't touched on in this chat that, has been coming up a bit lately, maybe through your work with clients or in some other way that you feel like needs addressing? Because if it's important to you, then I feel like it's going to be important to other people. Yeah. A lot of what we've touched on.
Yeah.
You might need to edit this bit out of the podcast, what I'm thinking.
No, I'm going to leave the awkward silence in there.
I think I was having a conversation with a client the other day, and she's entering into a new training block, and I said to her, what's a training block? A training block, so basically we do a training program for usually around 6 weeks, and then so we do the same exercises for 6 weeks, progressively increasing the intensity of them, and then we'll change the program. Okay. So that's what training block is. And so we're about to do a new program for her, and I said to her, have a think about if you want to work towards a particular lifting goal or something in our next block. We have our long-term goals that we're working towards. She's doing absolutely amazing. And she had a really beautiful reflection. She said that when we started the block, the current one that she's in, I didn't think that I would be lifting the numbers that I am. I didn't think that was possible for me. And she said, so now I want more. And she said, I think I can set some goals, but I think that there's also things that I will achieve along the way that I couldn't even have conceived at the start of my journey with you. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think this is a really nice thing to think about, to recognize everything that we're achieving while we're working towards something new, and to have our goals, but to also recognize that other goals may be ticked off along the way that we didn't even realize were goals.
That's so nice. Honestly, that fills me up with the warm and fuzzies. Because yesterday I was going through some of the old reels that I've made for the podcast, and I found you, of course, I found Lucy Barnard, and I found old messages, I found things that people had said. And it's kind of a grind, at times when you've got this hobby that you really love and you're so passionate about, and you're trying to progress, but it's not a simple hobby as well. There's challenges with it, and sometimes you think God, where is this all going? And then you think, God, I've met some people that I never could have imagined meeting. I've had conversations that I never would have dreamed of having with people on the other side of the planet that are currently breaking world records and doing incredible things. Just pinch yourself moment to realize how far you've already come when you're in the moment of trying to get to somewhere even greater than where you are. That's a beautiful reflection to have.
Yeah, and I think to acknowledge that in the moment as well, to reflect on everything that you're achieving at each step. I think that it's very easy to get attached to the longer term goal, whether it be with the podcast wanting to have X number of followers, or whether it's in health and fitness to achieve X, Y, Z, whatever it may be. It's really easy to become very fixated on that end goal without recognizing, what do they say? Life is in the journey.
Yeah.
Right? Without recognizing everything that you're achieving along the way.
Yeah. And the people that you're meeting and connecting with, and the memories that you're creating together along the way.
Yeah.
I saw this little clip of Brad Pitt talking at an awards ceremony about a character that he's currently reading through in a script, and it said something like, life's more about the journey, not the destination. And the other characters, it says, I think it's more about the company that you're with. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. That's nice. Because I believe in the journey, but I also really believe in the company. You know, the people that you meet, the ones that enable you, the stories that you gather. You know, you in your professional career, you know, you can't get to where you're going without the people that are here now. You know, allowing you to share your gift and your wisdom and your discipline with them, you know, and build those memories along the way. You know, one day you'll have your own big platform of people that you're influencing, but it comes from what you're doing right now. And you're obviously doing it very well, so congrats to you.
Thank you.
Pushing through your own personal boundaries as well, and not booking that flight to Mexico.
Yet. No. No, I'm committed to building a life here.
Great. Well, yeah, this has been another fantastic conversation.
It has, thank you.
Oh no, they've
Thanks
come
for
for
having
you.
me back.
They've come for you. Fine.
Just had some popos walk past.
Yeah. Oh, they walked right past you. How? But no, it's been brilliant. It's always special to chat. I'm glad you agreed to come back and do this with me again, because yeah, I felt like the podcast of late, and if you go through it, it might start to get a little sausage heavy, and I was like,
we needed some boob talk.
we needed to. Actually, this will be 2 episodes in a row with this boob talk. But
from the female perspective.
yeah, okay, thank you, balancing it out. But yeah, it's important to have diverse voices on the podcast for me, and people that bring unique perspectives, and you certainly do that, and I'm very grateful to have you as a guest for the second time, and hopefully not the last time, and it might be another year, who knows, before we do this again. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to staying connected and staying close to your journey, and reading all your captions, and you know, learning about what's important to you in your life. And congrats on the mindset fortification that has happened for you as well through your recent injury too. You know, that's a big, you know, and that's something that you need to go through for your clients to benefit from as well. So yeah, there's a lot of admiration coming from this side of the mic for you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And it's been really nice to sit down and chat again. And yeah, thanks for having me back.
No, thanks, Morgan, and yeah, thanks to the audience for sticking with us.
Yeah.
Woo! Love you guys. Bye. We'd love to know what you thought of that episode of the Lui Diaz podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and even TikTok to let us know. And be sure to follow, subscribe, and leave us a review on Spotify, where you can catch some of our other really great episodes. Thanks for listening, and catch you next time.